Hello, my fellow chatterers and stat lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you are curious about what this is or you have got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chatty. This is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly about my February stats. I am again doing another early morning video, so if I look very sleepy, it's because I am. Just trying to carve out some time to film because I just want to have these videos done for my own satisfaction and out there so I can kind of move on from the books. So let's just crack on and get into it. So with, oh no, hold on, haven't done my little gimmick. So on this channel, I do not edit my long videos. I do one continuous shot and I only have the power of pause to help me. So it is one shot, no editing. Cheers everyone. Clink, 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 clink. So I didn't have a TBR in February. I was going to be doing like another kind of roll as you go. I ended up only doing one roll as you go on my book game, and then I just kind of like read what I felt like. I was sort of wanting to loosely take part in BLACKATHON because I really enjoy that readathon, but I was feeling very burnt out from doing readathons in January, so I just read books by Black authors and didn't kind of worry too much about the prompts. So for that I have 3 books were ones that I read. So I had Root Magic by Eden Royce, I had Homegoing by Yari Garcia, and I had Black on Both Sides, A Racial History of Trans Identity by C. Riley Snorton. So half of the books I read were by Black authors, so I felt that kind of worked for my taking part in BLACKATHON. February was just a very weird month. I don't know sort of what I was doing in February or what was going on with me in February, but it just felt weird. So I only read 6 books this month. Absolutely fine. But as it was a weird month, I think that was very good for me to just be reading 6 books. That is less than what I usually read, but I did enjoy what I read on the whole, so we'll take it. So along with those books, I also read Big Hero 6 Volume 1 by Haruki Ueno. I read A Restless Truth by Freya Mask, and I read The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. So here are my 6 books that I read in February. So out of those 6 books, in terms of sizes, I read 2 books that were mouse sized. So any kind of a graphic novel, manga, I would class as a mouse regardless of how many pages it is, just because it takes me, it doesn't take long for me to read that format. And I also have Homegoing that just stayed in the mouse category at 300 pages. So for me, I link my books to animal sizes, and mouse is anything that is 150 to 300 pages. So we have 2 mice here. I then read 3 goat-sized books. So a goat is anything from 301 to 400 pages. I technically Black on Both Sides comes under mouse because it's like 250 pages, but the writing on this one, the pages are much bigger than your kind of regular book size, and the writing is tiny. And it was just very dense, so for me I felt it didn't quite fit in the category of mice, because mice is kind of more of a, you can kind of get through the book a bit quicker, so for me I moved it up to goat because I felt it suited it more. A Restless Truth and Root Magic were also goat-sized books. And then one cow-sized book, which is 401 to 500 pages, and that is The Stardust Thief. In terms of reading ages, so the age range that I was reading, I read 4 adult books: Homegoing, A Restless Truth, Black on Both Sides, and The Stardust Thief. I don't know the official age range for Big Hero 6 Volume 1. I just put it as YA, so I'm classing it as YA, so I read one YA, and I read one middle grade, which was Root Magic. So in terms of me having a third of what I read middle grade, didn't do so well this month. I just had 1 out of 6, so that's not hitting my goals, but never mind. In terms of the format of what I read 1 manga, which was Big Hero 6, and 5 books, novels, which is Stardust Thief, Black on Both Sides, Restless Truth, Homegoing, and Root Magic. I read 1 library book, which was Restless Truth, and the rest are all books that I own. So that's Big Hero 6, Root Magic, Homegoing, Black on Both Sides, and a Stardust Thief, which I'm finding really hard to say. In terms of series, whilst both Big Hero 6 and A Restless Truth could be are parts of series, Big Hero 6 is volume 1 out of 2, and A Restless Truth is the book 2 out of 3 in, I believe it's called the Binding Trilogy. I just read that 1 book, and I'm not planning on continuing the series, so I'm not counting them in my series stats. So it's just 1 book, which is A Stardust Thief, which is starting a series, but also being up to date in the series because this is the only book out. The second book, An Ashfire King, comes out in 2025. I hope. In terms of global majority, so that is Black, Indigenous, or person of colour, I read 5 books out of 6, which I am very chuffed with. I mean, I was taking part in BLACKATHON, so I flipping should have done. So I have Black on Both Sides, Homegoing, Root Magic, Stardust Thief, and Big Hero 6, and 1 white Eurocentric book, which was A Restless Truth. So in terms of my goal, having half of what I read, well done, me. In terms of genres, I have got lots of brackets for myself for this one. So I think technically, so I'll do the official classing. So I have 3 fantasy: Root Magic, A Stardust Thief, and A Restless Truth. And then I have 1 historical fiction, which is Homegoing, 1 non-fiction, which is Black on Both Sides, and 1 sci-fi, which is Big Hero 6. However, these 2 books, Root Magic and A Restless Truth, will also fit several different genres. So they would also come under historical fiction, which would also make historical fiction 3 books along with Homegoing, because Root Magic is set in the 1960s and A Restless Truth is set in Edwardian times in England, or on a boat to England. I've lost my thing. Yes. Also, A Restless Truth could also come under the mystery category because there is a mystery in it, and Root Magic could also come under the horror category because there is horror aspects in it as well. I think the strongest classification for both of these would be fantasy, however, so I put them in fantasy for official stats that I would put in my year-long one, but I just wanted to point that they could cross genres as well. Okay, in terms of my reading diversely, I already mentioned that 5 of the books were global majority, so that is 3 books written by Black authors, and then I have 2 books written by Asian authors, which is The Stardust Thief and Big Hero 6. No books by Latinx authors, and no books by Indigenous authors. Those are definitely kind of the global majority categories that I struggle to read books from, so that's something that I need to work on going forward. In terms of LGBTQ plus representation, I have 2 books. I have Black on Both Sides and I have A Restless Truth. In terms of neurodivergent representation, I read 0 books. In Homegoing, there is there is some LGBTQ representation, but it's only one of the so Homegoing follows lots of different generations, and so it's could be kind of read almost a little bit like short stories. So there was only one where there was a character who was part of the LGBTQ plus community. In terms of mental health, there's definitely a lot of books that cover sort of trauma and grief in these books. I'm just going to work out which ones they were. So there is definitely a small look at grief in Big Hero 6, but I don't think it delved too much into this one. Absolutely, there was a lot of traumatic stuff in Black on both sides, but that was not the focus of this kind of book as a whole. So I'd say like it touched on aspects of that in here. So I'm not officially classing it. And in Stardust Thief as well, there were aspects of grief in here that could have kind of like affected mental health and things, but I think again it was kind of just touched on rather than fully explored. I do think it was explored in Homegoing and in Root Magic. Homegoing, there is some very strong evidence of kind of mental health in Homegoing because of everything that the characters endured, and that kind of comes out in different ways. So I feel that was kind of a strong theme throughout the book. So I would be classing this as this book did cover mental health. And in Root Magic, there is a look at as well as grief. Also, there is stress in here as well. And I do think that is kind of gone into a little bit more. So I would class that in this one. And finally, I have lost my page, which is not helpful. Yeah, and in terms of disability representation, there were aspects in Homegoing, but again, it was only in sort of like a couple of chapters. I don't think it was enough for me to class it as a book with disability representation. So there were just aspects of it, but not enough for it to be full. When I talk about like reading books diversely, what I'm looking for in those books is the protagonist has to be going through either some sort of mental health difficulties, the main character or like a really strong side character has to be neurodivergent, or have a physical disability, or be part of the LGBTQ plus community for me to class it in my diversity categories. So finally, I'm going to be talking about my least favourite book and my favourite book. My least favourite book was Big Hero 6. I really love the film, but I don't think the format of manga works for me. I discussed this more in my February wrap-up, which I will link here if you want to know more of my thoughts on it. It was perfectly fine, and I think if you're someone that enjoys manga, then you'll probably get a lot more out of it. But I just found myself kind of like pulled out of the story a little bit. My favourite book. I did really enjoy Black on Both Sides and Homegoing, but they were both very heavy and emotional reads. I think they're absolutely wonderful books. And in terms of like works of literature and works of, non-fiction is not literature, but like works of non-fiction. It's early, I can't brain. I thought they were really, really good. But books that are my favourite are ones that I have a strong kind of emotional connection to throughout, and I need a certain amount of lightness in my book for me to really adore and love them. So while I really enjoyed these are not my favourite, and I can't choose between my favourite, which is fantasy, and it's a middle grade and an adult fantasy. But yeah, I just love these. They just worked for me on so many levels. The Stardust Thief had ticked all of my fantasy enjoyment tick boxes. We had some great character arcs. We have a really intriguing plot. We had a well-layered world. The world building was really interesting. There was a lot of depth to it. I've got a lot of questions I still want answered. I really enjoyed the characters in here, and I can't wait to read more. So really loved this one. And Root Magic, Eden Royce's writing is just beautiful. The heartfeltness in this book was gorgeous. I really loved Jez, our protagonist, and kind of just being with her throughout this journey. And I enjoyed the themes that were explored, and I enjoyed kind of like the feeling behind this book. It was just gorgeous. So yes, Stardust Thief and Root Magic were my favourite in February. And that is everything. So there we go. I am filming this in May, so it's not amazingly relevant, but it helps me. It's like my personal reading diary. I like to kind of explore my sats and kind of reflect on my reading at the end of each month. And because I'm a very chatty person, I can't just add it into my wrap-ups because we would still be here for a very long time and I would have no voice. So there we go. I have my own videos for stats. Thank you so much if you have been watching this, and if you have any thoughts on any of the books I spoke about, then please do get chatty in the comments. If you want to let me know about what you are reading, or if you also like exploring stats, then please do chat to me down below because you know I love a chat. Happy reading, everyone. Cheers.